Hello, everybody. My name is Susie Hanks. I've been a radio personality here in Houston for the past 20 years, and I've had the pleasure of working with Rebuilding Together. I've recently interviewed Christine Holland, the CEO for Rebuilding Together, on my public affairs radio show, FYI. And it's my pleasure to be working with Rebuilding Together again and is serving as today's moderator. Today's Home Safe webinar is brought to you by Rebuilding Together. Rebuilding Together is a recognized leader in single-family affordable housing. During their 38+ years in Houston, Rebuilding Together Houston has repaired homes and revitalized communities and helped hundreds of families and rebuilt the lives of people every year. AARP has also sponsored with Rebuilding Together to sponsor the Home Safe webinar series. Let's learn a little bit more about AARP.
Our story begins more than 60 years ago inside an abandoned chicken coop where our founder discovered a retired teacher living. No home, no health care. So she said no to this injustice and yes to transforming lives. It's this drive, this compassion that inspired AARP. Today, we empower people to choose how they live as they age. We advocate for health and financial security. We strengthen communities everywhere. We are AARP Houston, creating real possibilities.
Thank you again to AARP for sponsoring the Home Safe webinars. Next, I would like to introduce our experts today on preventing slips and falls and pest control. First of all, I'd like to introduce you to Dr. Michael Merchant. Since 1989, Dr. Michael Merchant has served as the Urban Entomology Specialist or bug expert at the Texas A&M AgriLife Research and Extension Center in Dallas. His job is to develop educational materials to reach the public and conduct applied research and training programs for the landscape maintenance and pest control industries. Hello, Mike.
Hi, Susie. Thanks for the invitation.
Of course. And Adam Oganowski has been a project coordinator at Rebuilding Together for 3 years, leading volunteers in making major repairs and modifications to the homes of seniors in need. Adam was instrumental in the development of Rebuilding's Safe at Home program, which includes installing handrails, emergency lighting, and grab bars, and improving the overall navigability and safety of homes. We're going to start on ideas how to avoid slips and falls. One of the key ways to prevent falls is to improve visibility around the home, mostly through lighting. What are a couple of areas that could benefit from improved lighting, Adam?
Sure. So typically the areas that we use to move between rooms, like hallways and stairways, are going to be the ones that benefit the most from brighter lighting. When you're shopping for new bulbs, what you want to be sure to look at is the number of lumens, as that's going to be the metric that'll tell you the brightness. You can see that where that is on the label in the slide here. And you may also want to consider not just getting brighter lighting, but adding a couple of different lighting options that reduce the amount of time you move around in the dark. And that could be things like motion sensor lights outdoors, or having a remote for your overhead bedroom light so that you don't have to flip the switch and then stumble in the dark to get into bed.
So I wanted to tell you, I was talking to a friend of mine, and he was telling me that just the other day, he was talking to his mother on the phone, and she fell while she was talking to him. She was walking from one room to the next and fell down and actually broke her pelvis. He was on the phone with her when it happened. Some owners may need additional handholds like grab bars and handrails in order to move around to be able to stay safe, but they're not sure where to install them. How do you decide where to install fixtures like grab rails and hand bars?
Sure. So the thing you're going to be looking for is where a lot of extra exertion happens. And where that's typically going to be is on any sort of large step up, whether that's going up a staircase or stepping over the lip of the tub to get inside. For those kind of things, what you want to do is install a grab bar vertically so that you can kind of pull yourself up and over. And then when you're talking about handrails along any kind of staircase, you want to make sure it runs parallel to the grade of the staircase, and that you have those handrails on both sides so that you get that support going up and coming down.
Another problem is slick flooring. What are some ways to mitigate those kinds of falls?
Sure. So what you might think with slick flooring, that the solution to that is to not have slick flooring, right? To have carpet that'll create a lot of friction. But that's not really what we recommend, because every transition you have between hard flooring and any sort of carpeted surface is actually going to be a spot where your foot can catch and you could possibly fall. So what we'd like to say instead is to have hard flooring, but add slip-resistant mats in the areas that are more likely to be slick, more dangerous for falls. So places like the kitchen, the bathroom, and then on any hard stairs. And then when you do have larger rugs, what you're going to want to be doing is adding slip-resistant mats underneath those so that they don't come out from under you.
So a lot of these things involve things that you have to buy or purchase or invest money into the home. What are some ways that homeowners can prevent themselves from falling and remain steady and more or less prone to falls that they can do at no cost?
Sure. So a lot of these things, a lot of these changes are more about rethinking how you move through your home and how it's designed for accessibility than anything else. So a big step is just addressing any sort of clutter you have around the home, particularly anything gathered up around the floor, because that's what you're going to be tripping over, and kind of taking stock, right? Does everything in my home have a place? Is there anything that I can throw out, recycle, donate, sell? That'll give me a little bit more room to move around. And then the other thing to think about is, what are my main walkways? And what are the things that I use every day? For your main walkways, is there any large pieces of furniture that I can move somewhere else, or any cords or cables that I can somehow move aside so that I'm not walking past them or over them every day and possibly resulting in a fall? For the items that I use every day, are those in accessible places on low shelves, or not tucked away in some corner so that I don't have to get up on the ladder or reach over real far in a way that could possibly put me off balance?
It seems as if one of the first things that people should be doing is walking through the home and trying to figure out what the problems are. Where can you get more information about how to spot those problems? What kinds of things to look for?
Sure. So the CDC, Center for Disease Control, has their own Check for Safety brochure that you can download and use to assess your home and determine what areas really need attention. We have a link for that at the end of the presentation, and then there's also a copy on the Rebuilding Together website.
Thank you very much, Adam. Lots of great ideas. Let's move on now to a topic that really bugs me, pest control. Dr. Mike Merchant from the Texas A&M AgriLife Research and Extension Center has a strong interest in identifying and promoting safer and more effective pest control methods. Hello, Dr. Merchant. What is it about Houston and our bugs?
There's something about the perfect storm, I guess, of warm temperatures year round and plenty of humidity and rainfall. So if you're new to the area, welcome. Welcome to the bugs.
Right. Dr. Merchant, can you share with us some rules that might help us keep our homes more pest-free?
Yeah, we have limited time today, but I do want to introduce you to some of the important pests in Houston. But before I do, I'd like to talk about 3 simple rules for safer pest control. The first one is that you don't always need a pesticide to control a pest. A lot of pests are best controlled by making your home less hospitable to the pest or less accessible. And this can include things as simple as making sure your windows are properly screened and doors are tight and roof soffits don't allow things like rodents and other animals to get inside. And also sanitation, just cleaning up around the kitchen and making it a habit not to leave food out overnight in the kitchen. So, and if you see signs of cockroaches and you're in the habit of cleaning up your dishes in the morning, for example, you might want to just adjust that cleaning schedule to avoid leaving the food out overnight. The second thing wanted to talk about was when you do use a pesticide, and a lot of times those other methods don't work. And you need something to help control a pest. We're fortunate that we have a lot of relatively effective and inexpensive and safe pesticide options on the market today. Although any pesticide is potentially hazardous, and that's important to know. But if you do choose one of the pesticides from the store, we really need you to follow one simple rule, and that's follow the label. The label's just not like a bunch of suggestions, like a recipe in the kitchen. It's actually a legal document, and when you buy a product to control pests in your store, local store, you're agreeing to follow with the label, and otherwise you're going to be in violation of state and federal laws. And lastly, I wanted to just point out that sprays and bug bombs are not the ultimate pest controls. We were all brought up watching commercials on TV with someone like Mr. Raid coming in and spreading a fog of death and destruction for insects, and following them into their crevices and hidey holes. And bug bombs just don't work that way. At best, foggers, like are shown in this picture, are good against flying insects in the home, and anything that crawls into a crevice or crack is well protected against these bug bombs. And even sprays are of limited use in many cases against many pests. So there are a lot of alternatives, luckily, to these two approaches to pest control.
You know, you always hear in the news about somebody who thinks, well, if one is good, then 10 will be better, and they'll set 10 bug bombs off in their house, and then the house will explode, and they'll have to call for help. Give us some more tips on controlling some of the important pests around the home.
Okay, yeah, I thought we'd talk a little about bed bugs. It's probably one of the ickiest pests that are common in our state and just about anywhere these days. And you know, when I and most of our listeners today grew up, bed bugs were very rare. They were kind of a non-issue in pest control in the U.S. But since the early 2000s, this has changed. Bed bugs have made a comeback. They've become one of our most important structural pests, especially if you live in multifamily housing situations, although they can affect pretty much anyone. So there are a few things that we can do, simple things that can be done to help eliminate bed bugs in the home. One is the first thing a lot of people ask me when they find out they have bed bugs is, should I throw my bed away? And the answer to that is no. At least if you like your bed, I wouldn't throw it away, and certainly don't throw away your box spring and mattress. Box spring and mattress can easily be debugged by just using an encasement that's bed bug proof, and you can find these in the store now, similar to allergy-free bed covers. They seal very tightly, they have very fine zippers, and bed bugs that are encased in these can't bite you and they can't get out. And that's a lot cheaper than having to go buy a new mattress and box spring. The second thing I would recommend is that you go out and buy something called interceptor cups. We have a picture of one in the picture here, and this cup is placed underneath the feet of your bed. And by encasing your mattress in box spring and putting the feet of your bed in these interceptor cups, you can make your bed essentially bed bug proof. Now that doesn't get rid of everything on the bed frame itself, and bed frames can either be replaced or they can be treated with a dust, something like diatomaceous earth or Cymexa dust that we show here. These are low toxicity desiccant dusts. They kill by drying the insect out, and are very effective. And so I would treat the bed, encase the mattress, and put these cups underneath the feet of the bed all at the same time. And you can even use something as simple as packing tape to stick to areas around where you pick up bed bugs, and also to lift eggs off of surfaces. Eggs are really hard to see, but if you see a bed bug on the surface of a wall or something, use a piece of packing tape to pick up the bed bug, and then kind of touch it to the area around the bed bug to pick up any eggs that might be nearby.
Bed bugs are just horrific and they freak me out, but something that freaks me out even more is cockroach. We have a lot of those in Houston. Tell me about cockroaches.
Yeah, and for good reason. Cockroaches are nasty creatures, and there are several different kinds that do get into houses here in the Houston area. This picture is a picture of a German cockroach. It's not the biggest cockroach, the big water bugs that a lot of people think of when they think of cockroaches. These are smaller critters, and they're found very commonly in restaurants and apartments and homes. And not only can they carry disease, but they also produce allergens that can exacerbate things like asthma. So if you've got these in your house and you have a constant cold or runny nose, it could be because of the cockroaches themselves. Now, when I actually worked in pest control early in my career, and 40 years ago, we didn't have very many good tools to control cockroaches. Today, you can go out to the grocery store and buy better products than I had as a professional 40 years ago, and they're called baits. There are a number of different baits that are on the market. They come in little plastic bait stations or gel baits or even dust baits, but something that the cockroach will pick up and eat. And these have just proved to be extremely effective against cockroaches.
Another thing to talk about, before I have come from downstairs and walked into the kitchen and look on the countertop, and there's a little trail of ants going along there. Let's talk about ants and how do you get rid of those?
Yeah, ants love Houston. I mean, there are probably as many different kinds of ants in the Houston area as there are anywhere in any major city in the U.S. Surprisingly, one of the more common ants that we get inside houses are fire ants, as shown in this picture. They're a shiny reddish brown ant, move very fast. And I say surprisingly because they're usually outdoor insects. They make their mounds outdoors, they live outdoors, but they will come inside to forage. And the best treatment for fire ants is to apply a fire ant bait to your whole yard around your house. What that's going to do is it's going to eliminate the fire ant mounds around your home, and the chance of them coming inside is much less. There are also sugar-loving baits, other different kinds of ants that can be a problem around the home. And for those, I recommend a liquid ant bait. Often in stores, they come in packages like this, and they can be broken off and laid out, and it exposes a liquid for the ants to come and feed on, much better than the solid baits. And so that's the good second thing to try if you have a problem with household ants. Now, on this slide, I have a website address, citybugs.tamu.edu. They have a lot more information about how to identify ants, how to deal with bed bugs, and all other kinds of household pests. So I'd really encourage our viewers today to consider visiting the City Bugs website and learning more about some of the things we can just touch on today.
Thank you, Mike. We've got some great ideas today to make our house safer and pest-free. Let's recap. One, improve the lighting in key areas such as stairs and hallways and the outdoors. Purchase lights with high lumens and have emergency lighting located throughout the house. Some accessibility solutions: use grab bars at entranceways, bathrooms, and anywhere there's a step down, and install handrails on both sides of the stairs. The physical room layout: remove clutter and remove carpeting and high mats and rugs. Use slip-resistant mats under rugs and arrange the rooms for usability and accessibility. As far as pest control, simple rules for controlling your pests: you don't always need a pesticide. When you do use a pesticide, follow the label, and sprays and bug bombs are not the ultimate pest controls. For bed bugs, you can use a mattress cover to fully encase the mattress, place interceptor cups around the house, and use silica aerogel or Simexa, and vacuum often, and use tape to pick up the bed bugs and eggs from the carpet. And number 3, German cockroaches: use cockroach baits and do some sanitation. As far as fire ants, you can also use ant baits. These ideas and more can be found on the Rebuilding Houston/Home Safe website. So we have a little time for questions. We have a few minutes remaining. We'll answer a few of the questions from the audience. First of all, this comes from Melissa in Spring. What is the standard height at which to have a handrail, Adam?
Sure. So with the handrail, the ADA guidelines for that are going to be between 34 to 38 inches. But of course, whenever you're installing a handrail or grab bar or anything like that, what you kind of want to do is rig it up some way, either hold it up yourself or have somebody else hold it up for you to kind of feel where your hand sits on it. So go between that 34 and 38 inches, but make sure you kind of really put your hand on it first at the height that you want to install it, and make sure that that works for you.
Eddie is writing in, wants to know how often to spray the home to keep the insects away.
Well, that's a good question. We get it a lot, but my answer is usually you don't need to spray anything unless you have a problem. So spraying preventatively is not what we normally recommend. We try to minimize the use of insecticides around the home as much as possible. If you have a problem like fire ants, apply the proper fire ant bait or the other treatments. If you have a problem with bed bugs, do the things that we recommend there. But no routine spraying is necessary.
And also, Eddie wants to know what can you do to make sure that the handrails don't come out of the wall after they're installed?
Sure. So that will when we're talking about grab bars, what you really want to be looking at is the quality of anchor that you get with those. Typically, they're going to be a plastic anchor that comes inside the box, those to be installed. But those are not always the best options, those pack-ins. So be sure to look around at your different options for fasteners that you can purchase with your grab bars. And then also be looking for studs behind the walls. Make sure that you have a stud finder and are locating where those supports are, so that you can make sure you're getting into real solid material there and not just drywall.
Here's a question from Kyle. What options are available for ramps if you want to install one inside or outside of the home?
Sure. So for ramps, in the case of someone who has a walker or particularly a wheelchair, there are, big, 30, 40-foot ramps that can be built outside of homes. Back to the ADA guidelines for a wheelchair ramp are 1 foot horizontal for every 1 inch of rise vertical. So that's how you end up with those really big construction projects. But if you're looking for something that you can just put together, in a day, that's not necessarily made for a wheelchair, but just to prevent, a 4, 5, 6 inch step up, there are modular modular ramps that you can put in that can go up in an hour or two, that are just a simple metal transition.
Mike, Michelle wants to know, what about home remedies for insects? Are they safer and cheaper than store-bought bug killers?
Yeah, actually, the store-bought bug killers, one good thing about those is that they've been vetted and tested, usually through the Environmental Protection Agency for safety, and you kind of know what you're getting with a store-bought product. Follow the label directions; it should be safe to use. Not so much with all the home remedies. Susie, you'd be surprised at some of the strange and sometimes toxic things that people get off the shelves that they want to use to control pests with. Spraying with flammable alcohols or bleaches and gasoline and other things just are really not very safe. And the products that are made to control pests are usually the best way to manage your safety, your risks around the home.
We're getting a lot of questions about stopping the bugs from coming into the house, maybe doing something outside, such as maybe there's a lot of bed bugs in an apartment next door to you. Or Jeff Wilkins is writing in, wants to know about how to keep ants from getting into the house because of all of the rain that has been going on. What can you do to kind of protect on the perimeter of the home?
So there are a lot of questions there, and a lot of different answers depending on the pests. There are insecticides that can be applied to the outside of the house, and that's always preferable, to stop pests on the outside rather than letting them get in. There are a group of insecticides called pyrethroid insecticides that come in liquid and granular forms, and they're available through hardware and garden centers, and they work fairly well to keep some insects. And I know we've got something called a tawny crazy ant in the Houston area, and they can be very difficult to control. And there's other products for that. But a lot of times for tough problems, you want to call a professional. Don't try to do everything yourself, especially if you've tried some things and they're just not working. A professional will have a little better access to tools than the average consumer.
John wants to know about something we haven't talked about: termites. How do you know if you have a problem, and how can you protect your home?
Yeah, termites are a big problem in South Texas. Houston just is a termite heaven down there. And the main thing is to be alert for the signs of termites. And what you're going to look for, if you take a walk around the outside of the house, you're going to look for little mud tubes that go up the foundation and disappear underneath the siding or into the weep holes of the bricks of the house. If you see something like that and you break it open and there's active termites inside, then you've got a problem. The other thing is in the spring, usually between the months of March and May, we have something called swarming season in Houston. And that's when the termites go on mating flights and they emerge in the house. They look like flying ants inside the house. And if you see something like that, my recommendation is to stick some tape on them, pick them up with some tape, or pick them up and put them in a jar or something, and call a pest control professional. The professional inspector can tell you whether it's actually a termite that you've seen or not, and can recommend control. And really, termite management is a job for a professional with proper equipment and chemicals.
Well, thank you very much for taking time out of your day to participate in the Home Safe from Rebuilding Together webinar, sponsored by AARP. All of today's participants will receive an email with the link to the recorded webinar and a short survey about the webinar, if you can please fill that out. For today's tips and more safety suggestions, please visit the Rebuilding Together website at rebuildinghouston.org. You can also view our previous webinars on fire safety, air quality, and accessibility modifications. And if you have any further questions, you can send them to info@rebuildinghouston.org. My name is Susie Hanks. Thank you very much for participating, and stay safe and well.